Hello, this is Eric from Seemu Apps, and in this tutorial we're going to be adding Gamecenter to an app with a leaderboard. So the first thing we need to do, we need to set up a few things before we can get it going. The first thing is in the Apple Developer Center you need to set up a unique app identifier for your app to use Gamecenter. So I've already gone ahead and set one up, but just to set one up here you just need to name it and then set an explicit bundle ID and make sure that Gamecenter is enabled and go continue through auto steps until you've made your app ID. Once that's done, head over to iTunes Connect and you're going to need to add a new iOS app. You can name it whatever you want. Choose a language. Your bundle ID will need to be the one you just made. So the one I'm using I've already set up in here, so we'll just cancel out of that. I set up this test IAP1 here, so we're going to use that. And once you've got it set up in iTunes Connect, you need to go into the app, and then you need to go into Gamecenter. And in here, initially it will be disabled, so you just need to enable it. It'll ask you if you want to use it as a group or a single Gamecenter leaderboard thing, so you just want to use it as a single one for this tutorial. Once that's set up, you'll see this screen here, and you'll see leaderboards and achievements that will be up there. So since we're just going to be using a leaderboard, you need to go add leaderboard, go single leaderboard, to name it whatever you want, so say my leaderboard. So that's going to be like a display name for the leaderboard. The leaderboard ID, this is going to be a unique identifier that you use in your code in the app to submit scores to this leaderboard. So just say leaderboard ID. I've already created one earlier, so I'll show you my settings. For the score format type, choose integer. We're going to submit the best score the player's got. We're going to go from high to low. And you need to add one language localization. So go add language. We're going to go English. Name will just be leaderboard. You can set the score format identifier, so you can use commas or decimal places, so we'll just use commas for this one. You can add a suffix to your want, and also another suffix which is a plural, and also add an image to your leaderboard. We're just going to leave those out for now, so save that, and then you can go save and set up your leaderboard. So I'm just going to cancel that, and I'll show you the one I've already got set up. Cancel that. Okay, so I've got one here. The reference name is leaderboard. The leaderboard ID is leaderboard ID, and it's a type single with an integer high score, as I showed you to set that up before. And it's also our default leaderboard. So once you've done that, we can open up XCode to set up our app. So I'll just open up XCode. I've got an existing project set up, so just create a new blank single view application, and I'll show you what we need to do to set it up. First thing to do is under targets, go to, I believe it's info. Yep, and under bundle identifier, the one you've created, you want to put it here so it links up to the one you created in iTunes Connect. Once that's done, go over to your storyboard and create it as follows. So we've just got a label up here for score, and then we've got 4 buttons. So -1, +1, leaderboard, and submit score. Once you've got that set up by dragging the labels and buttons down from this corner here, we just need to go to the assistant editor up in the top right, go here, and click on the buttons and hold in Control and drag, and create an action, type UI button, and then I'll show you the name it's going to do. So for +1, I've already created some, so I've already created +1 to add a score. So add that up, then do -1 for the -1 button. Then for the leaderboard, create an action show leaderboard. And for submit score, create an action submit score. Once that's done, we need to connect this score label up as well. So hold in Control and drag that. But we're just going to create an outlet and name the outlet label score. Once that's set up, we can do our code for our in-app purchases. So close that down, go back to our view controller. We're going to set a few things up. So the first thing we need to do is up the top here. This won't be here. You'll have import UI kit and that's it. So you need to go import game kit. And under view control here, we're going to set up some variables we need. So the first one will store the score. So do var score int equals 0. Var Gamecenter enabled equals bool. And var GC default leaderboard equals string. So this is going to store the default leaderboard we set up earlier. Now under this class view controller, you need to do a comma GK Gamecenter controller delegate. And once you do that, you'll see this error here. That's alright. We just need to add some code in that will get rid of that soon. So I'll show you what we need to add for that. So the first thing we're going to add is we need to authenticate the player, which basically signs them into the game center. So go function authenticate local player brackets curly braces and do let local player colon, it's going to be a type of GK local player equals GK local player dot local player. And we need to do local player dot authentication handler equals curly braces brackets view controller comma error brackets. Need to do an arrow void in. And we do if brackets view controller brackets is not equal to nil brackets curly braces. Do self dot present view controller animated is true and completion is nil. And after that, we need to add an else if. And the else if will be is local player dot authenticated. So this is if they've already been signed into the game center. And then we'll do print line local player already authenticated. Self.gc enabled, we set it to true. We're going to add some code in here later to get the default leaderboard ID, but we'll come back to that. And then down here do else, curly braces. And this is if the game center couldn't work for some reason. So do self.gc enabled equals false. Print line, the local player could not be authenticated, disabling game center. And then you can print line the actual error that they got as well. So basically with this GC enable boolean, if you want to check if the game is enabled, when it loads up, if it has been able to be enabled, it'll be set to true. Otherwise, if it couldn't load, it's set to false, so you can grab that later on to see if it's actually working or not. So in here, we're also going to store the default leaderboard ID. So to do that, I need to do local player dot load default leaderboard identifier with completion handler Now, you'll see this completion handler here. If you double click on it, it will just expand it out, which makes it a lot easier to code. So in here, we'll do Leaderboard Identifier of type string, exclamation mark, and error will be error, NS error, exclamation mark. Now then in the code here, we'll do if the error is not equal to nil, curly braces, print line error, else, curly braces, self.gc default leaderboard equals leaderboard identifier. Just copy it from here. Okay, so what this does, loads up the default leaderboard identifier we've set up earlier. So if you want to use the default one, it will get stored in this GC default leaderboard up here. So now that we've authenticated the local player, we're just going to set up this to add the scores and minus the scores. So under our view did load, we're going to set the label to be the score. So do label score dot text equals score, and also do self. Under here we're going to also authenticate the player as it's loading, so self.authenticate local player, and under +1 we're going to do score ++, so it adds 1 to the score. We'll also update the label to reflect the new score. Under -1, we'll do score minus, and also label score.text to update the score. Now the next item we're going to do, we're going to make it so you can show the leaderboard. So to do that, first of all, we need to add in a function to hide it once the user's seen the leaderboard and they want to close it down. So to do that, do function Gamecenter view controller did finish, and in here you just double click on it, and that will fill it out. And do curly braces here, and then do Gamecenter view controller dot dismiss view controller animated, true, and completion as nil. So sometimes if you write true, it's going to automatically capitalize, so you might have to type it in again just to get it to work. Okay, and to show the leaderboard, under this show leaderboard, what we need to do var GCVC, so that's for Gamecenter view controller, colon GK Gamecenter view controller equals GK Gamecenter view controller, and then do GCVC dot Gamecenter delegate self, and then we'll do GCVC dot view state equals GK Gamecenter view controller state dot leaderboards, and then we need to do GCVC.leaderboard identifier equals leaderboard ID. So this is the identifier we set up for the leaderboard earlier. So whatever your identifier is. If you want to show a different leaderboard, you change the identifier here. And we do self.presents view controller, GCVC animated true, completion will be nil. Okay, now that we've got that set up in this Authenticate Loader player, I just forgot to add one curly brace down the bottom. So if you add that here, you should get rid of these errors that were showing up down the side for some of our action functions. So the next item we need to do is just to submit the score to the Gamecenter. So to do that, under Submit Score, go there, Leaderboard ID equals Leaderboard ID. So if you want to change to a different leaderboard to submit it to, you just change your leaderboard ID in here. I'm going to do their S score equals GK score brackets leaderboard identifier. Just made a typo. So GK score brackets leaderboard identifier, and do leaderboard ID. So this variable here is going to store the score that's going to be submitted to this leaderboard here. So to set that, we need to do the S score dot value to actually set it, and it's going to be a special type of integer. We can't use a standard integer. Int up here we use for score. It's going to be an int 64. So to convert this int up here to an int 64, you just need to do int 64 bracket score, because if you try and submit a normal integer, it just won't work. And do under here, do let local player colon GK local player equals GK local player dot local player. Now we're going to report the score. So to do that, do GK score dot report scores with completion handler here. So scores, it's going to submit an array of scores. So to put the S score in array, do brackets S score square brackets. And with completion handler, just double click on that to expand it out. And for the error, we're going to do error and S error exclamation mark. And in here it's going to submit the score. So do if error is not equal to nil, curly braces. So do print line score submitted, else print out the error. Error.localized description. I believe it's meant to be that way around. If not, we can swap them around. Okay, so now we've done all our code for our Gamecenter. If we run it, we'll just make sure it runs and we can change the score, because there's two more things I need to show you to actually get it set up. But if we run it, should say welcome back. If it's your first time running it, it's going to ask you to sign into Gamecenter. I'm going to show you how to set that up so you can sign in as a test account. If we go +1, our score goes up. -1, our score goes down. So now that we know that's working, I'll show you the other two items we need to set up, because as I said, if it's the first time running it, it's going to come up with a screen asking you to sign into the Gamecenter. So the first thing you need to do, you need to go to App Developer, and you need to set up a development provisioning profile to test it. So go to Development, go to Add, and you need to go iOS app development, continue. You need to set one up for your bundle identifier. So if you drop that down, we've got Seemu.i up here, go continue. Select all the devices you want to run on, continue. Continue. You can name it whatever you want. I'll usually name it, say, Gamecenter Dev at the end of it, so we know it's a development profile. Go generate. You want to download that. Now once that's downloaded to your downloads folder, just close down Xcode, double click on it, and it will install it automatically. Once that's done, open back up Xcode, and you need to set it up in here. So just set it up. Go up into your here, go to build settings, under the targets for Gamecenter, and in code signing, if you drop that down at the very top, you should see your new provision profile. So ours is here, so just click on that, and that will set it up to connect to the iTunes Connect scoreboards correctly. Once that's set up, if you haven't already, it's going to ask you for a Gamecenter account. To set up a test account, you need to go to iTunes Connect. We go back just to drop this down here, go users and roles, or if you go back to the main menu, you'll see users and roles, so just click on that. And you need to go to sandbox testers. And to set up a test user, you just go add here. And this can all be dummy information, so you can name it whatever you want and put in anything. Just make sure you remember their email and password, because when it asks you to sign into the Gamecenter for testing, it's going to ask for your email and password. So you might do GamecenterTest at gmail.com. Password you might set as GamecenterTest. Once that's all set up, you just go to save. I've already set mine up, so I won't save that. And you'll see it in this testers list here. So once you've set up your tester, you can go back to your XCode project and run it. And when it asks you to sign in, you just sign in with your email and password. And once it's signed in, you'll see this pop up Gamecenter here up the top. So if we say add a score to 10, go submit score. That will submit the score to the leaderboard. But looks like we've got these around the wrong way, so I'll quickly swap them around. Okay, so we'll run that again. Okay, so what we swapped is under submit score. If error not equal to nil, print line error.localized description. Otherwise, print line score submitted. So just set our high score to 12, go submit score. We'll see down in here the score's been submitted. So if we open up the leaderboard now, we'll see the leaderboard for our app here and that score we just submitted. So you can download the source code for this tutorial below. And if you have any feedback or questions, just post it below. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe and leave any feedback below. Also check out our website, Facebook and Twitter by clicking or tapping any of the buttons on screen.